All right. The other thing too is your field of view. You've probably figured that out. Your field of view is really important, where you put on top of your head, all that kind of silly stuff. But before I get on with that, I want to ask a couple of questions about within the room here. How many people here use Google on a daily basis? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. How many people here use Google Street View on a very regular basis? Okay. All right. How important is Google Street View is really determined by a number of imagery that's actually out there that's current and up to date. If Google Street View was not up to date, like it is for some of the areas, like my patch, if you wish, where I do a lot of my work, is the Central Coast, Hunter Valley, Newcastle, and further up north. Okay. There's areas where the last time the Google Street View car went by was in 2008, when the Google Street View car first started going around for the first time, and it hasn't been back yet. And no, I don't work for Google, and no, I don't do the Street View car. But, folks, that's coming, okay? Google this year announced that if you want to get yourself one of these cameras, the Insta360 Pro, and you want to put it on your car and put yourself a GPS unit on the unit, and have a whole lot of hard drives in your car, you can upload Google Street View yourself. That's where they're going. They're going on large scale, okay? And what does that matter to you as educators? Is really the fact that we talk about all of the explorative tools that Google Street View actually has provided us already. Not to forget, it's the world's largest VR experience, bar none, and no one's ever going to catch up. That's impossible, okay? So you think about that as a first point of call. We need to understand who's the king. All right? Whether we like it or not, Google's Street View is the king of the room, okay, or queen. Now, the thing we have to think about now is what are we going to use this for from a point of view of educational value? Well, first and foremost, the first education is getting out there and learning how to use and shoot, okay? But and this is things as simple as learning your exposure triangles to make sure that your white balance is right, and you probably talked.
Give me instructions, but I didn't read them.
It's not. And once you start, you might as well start all over and go back to photography school. Any commercial photographers or professional photographers in the room? Okay, so does anybody here do good quality, high-end amateur photography in the room? Okay, so we've got a couple. So when you actually learned about the exposure triangle, how long did it take you before, and I should ask, how many rolls of film, because you probably learned on film like I did, before you got to the point where you go, oh yeah, all right, this is getting really expensive if I get this wrong, right?
I'm still learning. I constantly have to remind myself.
All right, okay. So understanding those parts of the process are just as important. The technology is helping. It's doing a great job of moving us forward with regards to how easy is it to actually take a decent quality image with a piece of kit that's worth $300. It's a bit of a joke in a way, right? So, and yes, should we actually be looking at better quality? Well, I'll tell you right now, like I said, I actually don't use this commercially, and I never will. My clients, which by the way are some schools, I actually have done a couple of small schools, and they use the Google Street View virtual tour photography that I do as a core tool for marketing their business. Because to them, hey, the fact is most schools are still, in a way, one way they're a business. You have to get the kids in there. You got to make sure that the moms and dads say that this is the school I want my kids to go to. That's important, right? You can't get around that. So you have to show off your school in a way that's actually inviting, that's truthful, that's authentic, that's recent. So making sure that the quality of that content is very accessible for most people is really important. So shooting it on Google Street View is one of the most powerful ways, because what it does is it also has an impact on the SEO. Anybody here know what the word SEO actually, or the acronym SEO means? No? SEO? Search Engine Optimization, right? Okay. Well, there's another one that you have to be aware of that relates directly to this. It's called local SEO. All right? And it's different than SEO. Most people don't know the difference between the two, and they're actually critical to actually getting businesses found. It's SEO that's geographically driven, okay? Which means, what's the best way to get local SEO in the world of VR? 360 photography, okay? It's the core of everything that happens in the VR world is a 360 photo. So now what we're talking about here is obviously it's very commercial, but the fact is all these kids that are going to schools are eventually going to want to use that content for what? For work. It's a job, right? So if they don't actually have the capacity to learn and shoot and actually create content, and then apply that in real real-world application, then there's a miss, okay? So we need to make sure we bridge that gap. That's why I'm a big proponent for ensuring that people get out there and shoot a lot, and create a lot of content, and understand the technology. And as a result, if they actually do this, especially in public places that are not, it's not a business environment, because obviously that requires to be a Google Street View trusted photographer to do on the inside of a business. But what you actually can do parks, do trails. In fact, go out and borrow the Google Trekker, the one that's basically the same thing as the car, put it on your back, and go do trails. Google loves that. And you can actually put out an application to Google, and they'll actually send you the Google Trekker, and you go do, for example, I actually went the Central Coast. Anybody here from the Central Coast at all, or know the Central Coast? All right, the Five Lands Walk, which is happening this weekend. Last year, I went around with my 4-meter tripod, really tall tripod, with my 360 camera kit, which, by the way, is a DSLR. It's just a regular Canon camera, okay? But I use a fisheye lens. That's how I do my commercial quality work. Up in the air at 4 meters high, doing 360s of basically some of the sweet spots and hot spots. And then, lo and behold, about 6 weeks later, up comes the Google Street View that did the whole thing, okay? Which is fabulous, because what it does is it connects the dots in between everything that I had done. All right? So you can imagine the power of that platform. Now, again, I really want to stress the whole issue of the importance of content creation in these spaces and the functionality and the usability. How many people here used Google Maps to get themselves to drive here, to come here? Is there anybody here that used Google Maps? All right. Did you try to use Google Maps to get to this room? Yeah? Did it work? No. Why? Because this place doesn't have it yet. Okay? There's a whole heap of businesses out there that don't even know this exists. All right? And these businesses and organizations, and schools, by the way, just as much, don't actually have, it blows my mind, because if they actually don't have a virtual tour, which is the core VR content, used to navigate their spaces, their geo spaces, but yet selling VR, there's a disconnect. There's a problem. You're absolutely right when you're talking about we need to collaborate. That's a key collaboration point that needs to happen, because if we miss out on that, we're actually forgetting how is it that these kids, these moms and these dads, are going to say, yeah, of course VR. Of course VR. Kevin Kelly, the fellow who started Wired magazine, 2 years ago was being interviewed and said that within 5 to 7 years, all websites will be VR based. So right now, what I'm actually in the process of doing is when I create a virtual tour that's on Google Maps, I actually add an augmented reality, very much like the hotspots. We call them hotspots, by the way, those little buttons on the screen. That's just a different terminology for the same thing. Whereby it's got a full menu, it's got the analytics behind it, but it's also really business driven, of course. But what it does is it gives the ability to use it at a high functional level, because in a large environment, large spaces, I think you'll agree with me that hitting the little arrow on the ground, going to the next spot, it's going to take a long time. Like I did Gosford RSL. You can imagine the place, I had 58 panels to cover the whole place. When I did Palmdale Lawn Cemetery, it's 26 acres. My goodness, that takes a long time to do that whole spot, that whole business, right? So you're not going to do that. So you need navigation to get from point A to point B and improve the experience. But without those little indicator points in between, that's data that's missing, that may or may not be important to one particular person. And why would you just not make sure you completely shoot the whole thing? There's one more thing to think about now, is having to do with the issue of quality, pricing, and availability, because they're all interconnected, right? We know that basically the better the quality, if you buy the Insta360 Pro at just under $5,000, yeah, you're getting an 8K image and you can do 3D, okay? That creates quality, but then it creates a problem of availability, because if you know how much data that 8K takes up on a bad NBN connection, nobody's going to look at it, right? Okay, so to me, the quality is important, but keeping it 2D right now is actually very important for the purpose of making it highly available, and it also makes it more affordable, all right, from both the equipment that you're required to shoot with and also the technology to be able to consume the data or the experience, all right? So really important to think in those terms, okay? And basically what it comes down to is making sure that when you're actually shooting at a quality level like that, okay, and you have to look on the other side of the quality is, if you see a lot of theta shots out there, okay, eventually what's going to happen because people are going to go, it's not that impressive. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of... So shooting at a low grade actually is going to hurt the VR industry. Okay? So think about that before you publish an image. If you look at it, it's all blurry. It doesn't really tell a story. It doesn't help anybody learn anything new. Please don't publish it because you're just hurting people in the end. You're hurting the whole industry. You're actually better off to take the time and reshoot again. And in fact, you know what? It's just like that roll of film, which is why I start on that whole thing, is you'll go through more and more photos and you'll learn your exposure triangle a little bit better. You'll understand how to create better quality content.
So let me ask you one quick question. I took away two things, that I should buy this camera.
Yeah.
And number two is that I should download Google Street View.
You should, actually Google Street View, yes, but also knowing how to find content that's already there. Because Pradeep, you got to remember too that, does everybody know how to actually find Street View images on Google Maps? It's quite, if you click on the little orange guy, I actually call myself the little orange guy a lot of the time, okay? There's a little peg man in the bottom right-hand corner of Google Maps. If you click on that, you see a bunch of blue lines show up.
Right.
Okay? When you see those blue lines, if you're in the city, and then you just start to notice these blue dots, if there are one dot on its own and it's at a park, or on top of a park, it's probably somebody with one of these. Okay? Having fun. Perfect. Lovely. If you see a whole group of them on top of a shop or a store or a school, that's probably guys like me, girls like me, that actually are Google trusted photographers creating content for businesses. And that tells you right away, oh, I can go and have a look around. So it's not just an issue of content creation, but it's also knowing how to get access to that content and finding it. Okay, and that's one of the easiest ways to find it. The other one, of course, is your Google My Business page, because that's where I publish everything too. It's directly associated to a business's Google My Business page.
So my question is that what would Bronwyn and Dan should have done in getting a better quality, apart from buying this camera and downloading the app? What else could they have done to really make this?
Well, I'll tell you right now.
So forget about the camera. What else could they have done?
Basically, in terms of actually finding out, researching on the internet, there's about 5 or 6 different websites. I'm more than happy to share some of the ones that are the small content creator websites. There's actually a guy who's in Castle Hill. And so he actually reviews a lot of these cameras. And there's also a guy from the Philippines who does an awful lot of work. It's actually called 360 Rumors. And you may want to write that one down, 360 Rumors. It's actually really, really good. It's not even his day job, but he does a really good job of actually comparing from the Measphere. I actually learned about the Measphere through him. All right. All the way through to the Insight 360 Pro and all those. Yes?
Could you say the name of that very slowly?
MI
Yes.
Sphere. It's basically a co-branded product. And I believe that the Measphere is slightly higher video quality. There's a slight difference in price. That's probably $100 difference or something like that.
So just as for your information, we are also planning a session, involving Kingston and Mark about this range of cameras and, like what can we really buy which is affordable and what are the pluses and minuses of each of these kind of stuff. So, any questions from the audience, please? Okay, so one more that I have is, again coming back to Bronwyn and Dan. So you said, yes, they could have Googled those 5, 6 content websites. Anything else they could have done?
Oh, there's a ton of things. There's actually a lot of stuff out there. It is a bit hard to find in some ways. Also, there are other associations, by the way, which I mentioned to you today, which is actually a really old, and it's actually a photographers association called the IVRPA, which I'm also a member of, which is the International Virtual Reality Photographers Association. Because of the fact that in the world of 360 content creation, it did start with photography. In fact, and those are the kinds of people that you'll find at the IVRPA. They're real geekheads. They really get into it. Now, the people who tend to present there are guys that are Al Bug from Go Through, and these are all people that you wouldn't necessarily know till you join. But you actually would want to make sure that you're really interested in photography too, because they'll do that.
That's really important because our students can't go out and take their own footage. So if we can somehow give them access to 360 content that's already available,
Right.
that's really...
Well, actually, and that's an interesting point you make, because they can actually go and take their own content.
Yeah, they
but
can't
not-
get to Japan every.
But I'm not suggesting that they don't need to go to Japan, okay? What they can do is create their own content by owning one of these cameras. Going to the Tokyo conference is somewhat irrelevant. It's more about having, because it's all on YouTube, you can just watch it.
So, Mark heads our community of practice for photography, as does Bronwyn for STEM, as does Brett for content. So we will get together all of this. Please give a round of applause to Mark.